Hello and welcome to Learn Livestreaming Live. My name's John Lacey. Today on the show, we're going to be talking all about some content experiments, some ways of breathing new life into your content creation processes and your content itself. We are going out live to all the various places. So please let me know in the chat where you happen to be watching from. It's great to have your company this week. Obviously, I couldn't do my show live last week. I've had a bit of a cold, so that's been a bit of an ongoing problem. But hopefully my voice is gonna hold out enough for this week, but it might be a shorter one. But we'll just see what happens. It's great to have your company nonetheless. All right, and hello to new guest. Great to have your company. All right, I don't know if that's a real person or if that was a test thing, but we'll figure it out. It's fine. All right, so let's. I keep saying all right. It's a bit of a weird loop. So I guess one thing I do want to comment on is that I noticed there's a new setting in the back end of YouTube Studio for me, and I know a lot of people have had this setting for a while. But essentially, if you join my YouTube stream later on, it theoretically should give you some sort of summary of what's already happened. So, and that is powered by AI, and I'm really curious to see if that's any good or if that works. So I'll keep an eye on the chat, and hopefully it appears there. It may not. It may be a YouTube-specific feature. So I've got YouTube running in the background as well. But I guess, you know, it's probably worthwhile just keeping an eye on those settings. And I know that feature's been out for select people for a little while, but it's just reached me, and I think it's intriguing. I don't know if it's great. If you're new here, you may not know this, but I'm not a big fan of generative AI. But I'm just sort of curious to see how that plays out. So I guess first of all, let's actually talk about you know, when sometimes the content creation process can get a little stale. I know I'm certainly a creature of habit, so it's very easy for me to get into habits that are really good, but they can also turn into ruts, and it can get really, really boring really quickly. So I do need to shake it up a little bit. Hello to Linnea Johnston, who's watching over on I'm assuming watching over on LinkedIn. It doesn't actually tell me here. It says, "Hey John, hoping for some great ideas today." Thank you so much, Linnea. All right, so I kind of, and I think I just mentioned it, but sometimes we can get into habits. Those habits can really support us, but they can also become boring over time. So I think it's worthwhile checking in to see if things are still fun, if they're still fresh, and if you still want to actually do them, or if you want to sort of try a different approach. So that's definitely worth exploring. And I'm just gonna, this is gonna get a little bit nerdy quite quickly, but I think we'll just do this right now. And for me, I'm a bit of a nerd. I love gear. I love experimenting with different things. And lately I have purchased a few things to hopefully make my life a little bit easier. And first of all is this beautiful thing, and this is a stock photo, obviously, of me holding it. This is the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor. DaVinci Resolve is an amazing video editing piece of software, and this thing is so beautiful. It feels amazing to touch. You've got a little scroll wheel. I'll actually go into DaVinci later in this hour and show you how I'm actually using that. It's really, really epic. I guess some of the other things that are fun too is, can you change your setting? Like, I do a lot of stuff here at my desk, and I love it because I've got everything set up and ready to go. I can turn on my lights, I can turn on my camera, and I'm good to go. But can you maybe move into a different setting? And it's great that Linnea's here, actually, because, you know, she's somebody who does this on a weekly basis. She'll actually go out into her garden, or another garden sometimes, a botanical garden, and actually film a video from there. So the thing that I'm hoping will make my life a little bit easier in terms of filming outside is this monopod. And it's a very sturdy unit from Newer. It's so elegant. Because I've been unwell, I haven't really had an opportunity to test this out in the wild just yet, but it is such a beautiful thing. And it's actually really quite portable and sturdy. And I guess the other thing I want to explore, this isn't really a gear channel. I don't do a lot of reviews and experiments, but I have this microphone on the right is the Rode Wireless Micro USB-C, and it's a beautiful, beautiful microphone, and it's sort of a $200 Australian dollars microphone. And this one on the left is actually from Kmart Australia, and it's like $20. And I really want to sort of, now that I'm starting to get my voice back a little bit, I really just wanted to make a comparison of those two because I think it would be really, really interesting. So those are some of the things that I want to play with. And I guess, in terms of making this fun again, I think play is a really important word for this context. So, it's one of those things that you can go out and experiment and do new things and try new things. And I'm such a habitual person. Like it is a big deal for me to actually do things differently. It often requires a little bit of effort, and it doesn't always feel particularly natural. And I think that's the other part of today's experiment is the experimental part of it. The fact that you're not going to be comfortable. Things are going to be weird. They may or may not turn out well. And, all of that's okay. Like, it's perfectly okay. You can ultimately make the choices about whether you share things or not. You're very much in the driver's seat when it comes to all of that sort of stuff. So that's really cool. Last week, and I kind of alluded to this already, but last week, because I was unwell, I couldn't actually do my normal show. So what I did instead, and let me just share my screen. This is the Learn Livestreaming channel on YouTube, is that I actually replayed almost 9 hours of previous shows together as a playlist. And this is a feature that you'll find, you can do this with all kinds of different software, but for me personally, I have Restream, which is what I'm using to go out to various places via OBS today. But the great thing about this is I can actually upload up to 10 videos on my current plan of up to an hour long and create a playlist and just play them along. So that's, obviously, and I'm really curious to hear from the other people that also do live content. Because I know some people like Sam Proof, my former co-host. I say former. Hopefully we'll bring that show back at some point, but there were just some technical issues we couldn't quite resolve. But Sam Proof, he often does this thing where he'll just go live and he'll work on whatever he's working on, and he will just have a, he'll do a bit of work, do a bit of chat, play some games, and he'll do that for like 6 hours at a time. Whereas when it comes to being live, for me, I usually want to share content. I really want to have an agenda, and I really want to have a plan. And for me, as an introvert, the idea of being on camera for longer than an hour at a time is kind of exhausting. So I try to arrange my content to sort of give me that out. But, again, the idea of actually playing, these first 10 episodes as one long video is an experiment. And I don't know that it's necessarily set the world on fire just yet. It may not. I know some people love to just hit play and have something running in the background at all times. And I hope that maybe that's useful for some people out there. So that's something you can try. The other thing, and I actually haven't seen if this is live yet, so maybe I'm sharing this too soon. But the other thing that I tried to do, and I just want to see if it's available here. And I don't think it actually is available on Apple yet. I think it's probably available on Spotify. Let me bring up Spotify. So the other thing that I did, and again, I'm a big proponent of giving your viewers, your listeners, your audience options when it comes to how they want to consume your content. So I've actually stripped out the audio of OBS Obsessed and actually made it its own little podcast. So I haven't quite finished doing all the work on that just yet. And I'm not actually seeing that in Spotify either. So maybe I have more work to do, but we'll figure that out. There it is. You're probably going to learn much too much about me from my music preferences here, but I'll share this anyway. So OBS Obsessed is now an audio podcast, and I've uploaded the first 10 episodes. So if you are interested in that, check it out. I have submitted it to Apple Podcasts as well. It doesn't look like it's available there just yet. The other thing, and especially for Linear and other heavy LinkedIn users, is that you can actually copy, if you click on the 3 little dots of these episodes, you go to share and go to copy episode link. You can actually embed that into a LinkedIn newsletter or article as well. So that's another way. And I think that's the thing. I couldn't really do anything last week because I was unwell, but I thought I have this massive archive of content that I could potentially repurpose. And I think it's really important, especially if you're making perennial content, to think about how you can actually repurpose that, because you spent so much sort of time, energy, and effort putting stuff into that, into that content. I think it's really important, and especially on some of the social media platforms, we know it has a very short lifespan. So in terms of visibility, so it's a really good idea if you can to actually bring those things back out into the open and share them again. I think that's a really worthwhile exercise. So again, I'm going to talk to you about things I've been playing with. I want to kind of put it to you too as well. Like, are there any opportunities to to repurpose your existing content? And what might that look like? And what might the workflow look like? And I can probably talk to you a little bit later. And well, I say a little bit later. Let's actually just do it now. I'm going to open up DaVinci Resolve, which is the video editing software that I like to use. And let's just check this out together. And of course, it's going to take a little bit of time to load. I hope you have had a great week. I know it's been really crazy hectic for me. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to create a new project, and I'll share my screen while I do this, and I'll just say sample for live. And what I would do is I would go and grab the recordings of OBS Obsessed, for example. So I might just grab something randomly from my videos. It may not necessarily relate to that as such, but let's just find something. In fact, let's just imagine that we're doing it for this show. So I'm going to drag a video over to my master, which is essentially the media pool here. And the great thing about this is we've got these little tabs down at the bottom of my video editing software. So we've got, this is the media tab, we've got the cut tab, we've got the edit tab. We've got Fusion, which is really good for doing sort of animated things. We've got the color grading tab. We've got Fairlight, which is for mixing and audio effects and all that great stuff. And the Deliver tab, which essentially renders your video. So if I actually go to the cut tab, and it'll be interesting to see how this works, because I might be obscuring the view a little bit. I might need to think about redoing this. But again, with that, that speed editor, which I mentioned earlier, that's what it looks like. What we can do is I can actually press the source button over here. And it is kind of behind my head, but just take my word for this a little bit. So with the scroll wheel on that, I can actually sort of scroll in and out of my video. And you can see that the audio waveform is doing its thing. You can see the intro of the video. And I think the other thing that's worth noting too is that we have a jog button and a scroll button. If I hit the scroll button, you'll see that shows me the entire waveform. If I hit the scroll, it sort of gives me a much more sort of zoomed in version of where I want to be. So you see here, we're still playing the music. Go a little bit longer. We've got that little fade out. And then you can see that I've got my video here. And I literally have a button on this thing called in. In fact, let me just, I don't know if you can see that, but those two white buttons on the left-hand side of the device are in and out. And I can essentially say, from this point, go in, and then I'll go and grab the end of it. I won't do it in real time for you because that'll be really boring, but essentially I can put an out point. And there are a few buttons on here, append and smart insert. So I can, because I've got nothing actually on my timeline at the moment, I can just go append, and you'll see down the bottom here, it's actually grabbed that bit of clip. And I can keep doing that through the video as much as I need to. And then I would go over to my edit page and I would make more granular edits. And I just love how frequently, when you're on video, there will invariably be a point where you just close your eyes, or it looks like you've closed your eyes for a second, and it's really hilarious. But essentially, that's what I can do. And like what I've been doing ultimately is sort of rendering those out as videos. I do also bring them into Hindenburg Pro, which is some podcasting software, just to make sure that the levels are right. And that's only because I don't really understand all the nuances of DaVinci Resolve just yet. But it's just a way of grabbing that content. So I literally had no voice. Well, I say that. It's not that I didn't have a voice, but I just coughed a lot. It was just not ideal for me to be making podcast or video content. And at that point, I had to think about what else I could do. So that's something that we can do. Lanier writes, love the Spotify example, John. It's a good reminder to add podcasts I've been a guest on recently to my public Spotify playlist. So thanks for mentioning adding it to LinkedIn articles. So I guess the one thing I do need to say about that is you can't embed a playlist from Spotify in those LinkedIn articles. It really is just an episode by episode basis. And I think it's because of the music licensing arrangements that Spotify has, because a playlist could feature podcasts and music potentially. So, but it's still a good idea to update that, because I know you've got that on your website. I'm pretty sure a share told me that at one point. So that's really cool. But I guess like the other thing, and I know this may not be the place to start for a lot of you. Like this software it has a bit of a learning curve, which nerdy me really loves. And I guess the thing that I came to realize in the last couple of years is I used to be a really big proponent of Camtasia from TechSmith, and I think it's a good place to start, but I kind of outgrew it. It didn't do what I needed it to do. And a lot of the templates and annotations and things were they didn't have the look that I wanted them to have. So I was finding that I had to do a lot of stuff outside of that software. But the great thing about purchasing the speed editor is that I also get the full version of DaVinci Resolve, which has some epic features in it. And we might come back and explore some of those later in the hour. But there is also a free version of this. So if your computer can handle it, because it can be a little resource intensive, shall we say? But if you've got a modern computer, if you've got a recent computer, probably out from the last few years, it's fine. You can download this. You can work with the free version. The free version does so much, and I probably didn't need to purchase either the speed editor or use the full version of DaVinci Resolve, but I just love what this company is doing, and I wanted to support them. So that's something that I've been playing with a little bit. All right, so I guess in terms of some of the other things that we could potentially be doing and thinking about, in terms of repurposing, recycling, remixing, there are all those variations of video to audio, long form content to short edits, horizontal to vertical videos. There are those sorts of things. You can make articles, you can grab quotes. I know a lot of people love the AI tools. It's not my favorite thing, but you do you. I'm not your boss or your parent. You need to figure out what that looks like for you. So essentially, you have those options available to you. And I think the thing that's been really striking to me recently is, because I've invested in perennial content, it's still relevant today. Like I shared something with Linnaeus Group actually from 2 years ago, and I was a little bit embarrassed by the audio quality and how I looked in the video, but the lesson of the video is still very much true. So, I think the more you do this, the more you'll learn, and the harder it will be to go back to some of that earlier work. But you kind of have a choice. You can just reshare that content, or you can recreate it. And again, depending on what your workflow looks like, that can be a pretty simple thing. And as much as I'm talking about getting out into the wild and doing more stuff outside once I feel a little bit better, the great thing about my setup at my desk here is I literally turn on the lights, I turn on the camera, I hit the record button, and I'm pretty much good to go. And I can do whatever I really need to do here. And I've done this hundreds of times, live and recorded and everything in between. So it's something I'm very comfortable with, and I think it's really worth exploring. All right, this is Learn Livestreaming Live. I'm John Lacey. Great to have your company today. We are going out live to the various places, so let me know in the chat where you're watching from, or potentially if you're listening to a podcast version of this later on. I haven't done that for this show yet, but it might be happening in the future if I find the time to make that happen. So, I guess that's another thing. I keep mentioning it, so let's actually go back to DaVinci Resolve, and I'll talk about that a little bit. If I can find the file, which hopefully is here. I've got to figure out a way to actually organize my videos in DaVinci Resolve a little bit better from this view, because I struggle. There we go. I found it. Okay. I guess one thing I should mention too, if you are actually upgrading, because the other thing is DaVinci Resolve went from version 19 to version 20. It's now asking me to upgrade my projects, and to be honest, I haven't experienced any problems with that. If you are concerned about that, you can actually sort of right click and I think duplicate, make a copy of that. I'm not going to worry about that here. I think this is fine. I'm just going to say upgrade. It's going to do its thing in the background and we should be good to go. So this is kind of an example of me actually getting outside of my comfort zone, literally and figuratively, and filming something outside. And here I actually did record this as a horizontal video, but I've kind of put the horizontal version at the top and I've cropped a version underneath it, and I've added the captions in there. Just so that we could see that. And that was just me talking about an upcoming show. So I guess the thing I would probably note about this is I'm really not well lit, but in some ways that's kind of the price you pay for being outside. Because unless you've got a lighting crew with you or somebody to hold a reflector, you kind of just need to roll with the punches a little bit. So just keep that in mind. I must admit, I'm sort of all over the place. So let me just go back over here to make sure I've got the comments visible. So in case somebody's actually saying something to me. All right. So essentially what I did was that, you know, I put those two videos together and I just recorded that with the phone. I recorded it with the wireless micro, which again is that one from Rode. The thing that kept me from actually making a lot of content on my phone was just simply that the sound was terrible. And I love the fact that I've got these little microphones now that I can, and that is this one on the right here, the wireless micro USB-C. There are others from other brands. I know Linnaeus, I think she said she had a DJI. I don't know if my memory's recalling that correctly. But there are a lot of great ones out there. So just grab one that fits your budget and go from there. But that is really cool. And I would like to get outside and do more sort of, you know, add a little bit of extra flavor, I think, to my content once I'm feeling a little bit better. So that's, you know, that's another thing to think about. Look at the things you're doing right now. Are they working well? Do you want to switch it up? Do you want to change it? Those are always options that you have available to you. And the other thing too is you don't necessarily need to commit to any of these things for the rest of your life. You know, you can try them. They can just be a one-off if necessary. And we can sort of go from there. So I'm going to take a really quick break and have a sip of coffee, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator. And that's a promo for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. And that little banner that you may have seen pop across the screen is also something I made in DaVinci Resolve in the Fusion tab. And there are actually videos on how I made that on the YouTube channel if you want to check that out as well. So today on the show, we're talking about experiments and updates. And there's so much happening in the world of technology at any given moment. It can be really tempting to want to keep across all of it at any given time. And that can be really, really challenging. So I don't want you to get overwhelmed, but what I kind of do want you to be aware of is if there are updates to the tools and software and technology that you're using to create your content, because new things may have arisen that you weren't aware of that might actually make your life easier. So I'm actually going to go back to DaVinci Resolve. I'm just going to find that sample for live project. Let's go back and share the screen. So again, because I purchased that speed editor, which is such a beautiful thing. I'm kind of obsessed with it. But the new version of DaVinci Resolve Studio. So Studio is the paid version. DaVinci Resolve is the free version. But this actually comes with a whole bunch of features. And as much as I don't love AI, generative AI, I don't want AI talking for me. I don't really want it to pretend to be me. But I do appreciate sometimes things with transcription, for example, where it's just supporting content I've already created. It's not putting words in my mouth, it's just trying to identify what I said. So here, if I go up to the time, actually I'm in the wrong place. I should be back in the editing screen probably for this. So if I go to the timeline menu, and again, this only works for the paid version, we do have these AI tools, and one of them is create subtitles from audio. So if I click on this, you can choose the language. It does say auto. I'm going to actually specify English. Subtitle defaults, teletext, Netflix. That's interesting. I'm just going to go with subtitle default. But what I am going to do, I'm going to choose double lines because that's something I tend to use. You can specify a gap between subtitles. I realize this is probably a little controversial in accessibility circles, but I try to leave the subtitle on the screen for as long as humanly possible, just so that the user has an opportunity to read it. I think if I was really following the spec, I probably should have at least like a gap between each of those. And I feel conflicted about that some weeks, but let's not dwell on it today. But essentially what I can do here is I can select those options. I can go create. This all happens on your local computer. So again, it's a good idea if you have something that's recent. It's not going to the cloud, so it's not feeding my information back to anybody at this point in time. And I know people don't really think about this, but there is always that potential that you're accidentally sharing your company secrets with other people. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so in this case, this is a really short clip. It doesn't go for very long. And what I might do, and again, this is another thing that we kind of discussed on LinkedIn a little bit, but essentially, I think it's under titles, we have subtitles. So we've got different subtitle treatments. I can actually go into the settings. I can choose my own fonts and my own background colors and all kinds of things myself, which is probably what I would normally do. But I just want to mention that we do have these. So if I sort of drag this and drop it onto the subtitle track, you'll see that we get this sort of karaoke effect. And I kind of asked people in the Linnaeus group during the week how they felt about that. And some people love it, some people hate it. I find it a little distracting, if I'm being honest. But again, those are choices for you to make. But again, like I'll try a different subtitle treatment. This is word highlight. And we can actually go into the settings and tweak all of this later on. So if the color combination doesn't work for you, you can go in and change it. But essentially, because DaVinci Resolve has done this translation, not only does it it knows exactly when you're saying each word, and that's sort of the power that's how this is powered, essentially, that it knows when you start saying the second word and it can highlight it. So there are a whole bunch of different animated options. Let's look at this lollipop one. It's very interesting. Let's hit play. And I should say too, I appreciate you guys won't be able to hear what's happening in the software, so you won't hear the second voice. But essentially, what is happening here is each word is sort of animating onto the screen one at a time, which again, could be fun, could be annoying. It depends how long you use it for. Let's try this next one, which I think is called rotate. And yes, it does exactly what you might think it does. It rotates each word onto the screen. Again, these are kind of choices that you need to make as the person creating the video or editing the video. But I don't know. I still feel like it's a little bit annoying and distracting for me. And I guess that's the thing. You'll never please everybody. There will be different people that want and need different things. And you just kind of need to make a choice and be okay with that, I think, for the most point. So we do have these other subtitle options that aren't animated. So these won't really worry about too much about which word you're saying. So if I grab this one, for example, this is literally just sort of white text with a red background, and the left and right hand side of this is sort of angled in an interesting way, which is you know, it's all right. So we have all those options. But again, for me personally, I used to do this thing where I would edit my video, I'd export it to a program on the web called Happy Scribe. It would do the transcription. I would go in and just edit it to make sure that all the words were correct, because AI is never perfect. And then I'd export it and bring it back into the video. And I don't really need to do that anymore. And it's really interesting that here it says, my name is John Lacey, and it's spelt Lacey correctly, because I did another clip with this last night and it spelt Lacey, L-A-C-Y, not L-A-C-E-Y. And I guess both are okay, and it's probably a lot to expect from a computer to know the difference between those things and appreciate the context. But it just goes to show you. And I guess the other thing too, you'll see that we have capitalization here. You'll see that it understands names of things. This is brilliant, because a lot of software doesn't do this. A lot of, a lot of the things I used to see in CapCut, for example, they would just capitalize everything because they didn't understand anything. They didn't understand full stops or semicolons or dashes. Like it just would be devoid of all punctuation. So I'm kind of loving that. I'm really, really loving that. So the great thing about that is you may actually find that you have multiple tools and you don't need them all anymore. And if you're in a position where you're paying monthly, you could cancel one of those. For me, Happy Scribe is something I paid a lifetime license for, so I'll have it forever, and I'll probably still find uses for it. But I just love that that's available to me now. The other thing too, and I'm going to close my project. I'm going to find another project I was playing with. Gosh. I need to find a better way of doing this. Okay, here we go. So this is another project that I've been playing with. This is a video I made previously, and I thought it would be really cool to play with this now that I've got those additional features of DaVinci Resolve Studio. So let me, and again, I realize you won't be able to hear the audio. The audio is not terribly important in this context, but if I hit play, you'll see that some things animate on screen. We've got the animated captions. And you'll see that I'm sort of walking back into the scene. And I think I must have broken something there because something is not playing correctly. But I guess the thing I wanted to call out here is that this text is actually behind me, because I've been able to mask out myself, because I've got two versions, and I'm not sure how easily I can show you this because there's a lot going on in this timeline. But if I make this bigger, there are two versions of this. Maybe I can drag this down. Let me just see. There we go. So I've got two versions of this video, and this is the original. This is just everything there, and I think I should be able to toggle that off somehow, but it's not immediately obvious to me because I am still fairly new at this software. But let me just see if I can. It's probably, there we go. It's disabled. So here we've got that, and up here we've got sort of a masked version. So if I drag this down, you'll see that this is just getting that little bit of me. And again, it's not perfect, and it doesn't actually really need to be here. But essentially, it's created that cutout, and because I have them both together, it sort of gives the illusion that we actually have some depth there, and I can literally put some text behind myself. And that's something that happens with masking. And again, you could potentially do that frame by frame yourself, but because of the AI masking tools that are built into this software, we can do that really easily. So in fact, what I might do, I'm going to close this, close the current project, and I'm going to copy this. So we can paste it. All right. So we're manually copy this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually come up to the second version of this video. I did this in Fusion. I'm told there's a better way of doing this, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it here. But what I might do, let's literally just get rid of all of this stuff. Just delete that entirely. Oh, actually, maybe not entirely. Maybe what I want to do is just get rid of that. Okay. And hopefully that's not broken everything. It might have broken everything. Anyway, it's the joy of learning, but let's actually just grab this clip. Let's go over to the color tab. And again, this is where I'm probably pretty outside of my I'll select this, I'll go add node. I will all right, I probably need to watch a few more tutorial videos on how to make this happen. But essentially what we can do is we can, in fact, it's one of these buttons, I'm sure it's going to tell me. Key, magic mask, there we go, magic mask. All right, so we have these options. I'll go better. And what I want to do is I want to make sure I've got my signifier, and I can probably just draw something on here. Give it a moment. All right, there's obviously a bit of delay there, so I'm not sure how well this will work, but I'm gonna do this really quickly, and we're gonna move on, because again, I'm not really you know, this is not really my thing to demonstrate this software. I'm still very new to it, but it is kind of amazing. So hopefully it's doing its thing. Anyway, I know that feels like a bit of an anticlimax, but I just wanted to point out that new tools or new versions of tools often have really interesting updates. And as much as you don't need to drop everything and study all of it, it is worthwhile to sort of go back to them periodically and just see what has changed and how it might help you in your workflow. So keep that in mind. It could be new features to your streaming software, your video software, your editing software. Even apps on your phone can periodically be updated, and you may or may not be aware of them, but if they ever sort of let you know that there have been updates and there's a README file, it's often a good idea just to have a quick look. Again, don't feel like you need to get bogged down in all the details, but just be aware that that could potentially be a useful thing. All right, this is Learn Livestreaming Live. My name is John Lacey. Today we're talking all about experiments and updates. So I'm really curious. Some of the other things that you might want to try, and again, think about the things that you're not currently doing and what you might like to try in the future. So for example, if you do all your content by yourself, consider maybe doing some collaboration with others. And again, what that might look like will vary quite a lot between tech stacks and ways of working. But you could bring on a guest, you could get them to create half the video, you could create half a video, you could sort of just edit those things together. You could even have a series where maybe part one is on one person's channel and one person's social media, and part two is on the other person's, and you could literally link them out to look at those sorts of things. That can be quite useful as well. You know, if you always do sort of content with other people, you might like to think about trying something on your own, just to see if you can, just to see what that feels like. And I should say too, and I think I alluded to this earlier, but just because you're trying new things, you know, they won't always go well straight away. They may feel very uncomfortable at first. Those things are okay. They're really okay. You just need to be comfortable with feeling a little bit uncomfortable, because there's potentially some magical things at the other end of that that experience. So it's definitely worthwhile exploring those as well. All right, so I'm really curious, other things that you might want to try differently in the future, things that you might want to experiment with, maybe making your content more readily available to new and different audiences. And again, getting back to that sort of turning the live stream into an audio podcast, I should say too, I still do this occasionally, but one of the things I did do for a while was I would actually post a LinkedIn newsletter article, just the transcription, just some headings, maybe there'll be some links and some images, just depends what the content was that week. And I would embed that Spotify player into the page. And What I found kind of striking, and I talk about this a lot because I really did find it striking, was that there were people who clearly don't listen to podcasts that would comment things like, "It is so great to hear you narrate the article." And that kind of blew my mind. I was like, they don't really understand the context, but again, they're not podcast listeners. They're probably not going to become podcast listeners anytime soon. And the fact that they can still experience my content in this slightly altered, repurposed fashion, I think is really magical. And I'm a big fan of sort of sharing things as widely as is practical. I know there can be a little bit of effort required with these things, but it's definitely worth checking those out. I'm going to take a sip of water, and while I do, I'm going to hit this magical button to remind you to like and subscribe. So, I really think it's worthwhile reflecting on what you're doing, how it's going, whether you want to continue it, because sometimes, you just get over things. And I know there's a famous podcaster who's decided to wrap it up after, I think, 16 years of doing his very successful podcast. And that's kind of shocking to people, but I think we often forget how much work a lot of this stuff is. And you can simplify your processes, you can make it easier, but it still requires effort. And I think, sometimes you do need to take a step back and think, do I want to keep continuing to do this thing, or do I want to shake it up? Do I want to explore something different? Because the problem I have is I have so many ideas and I just don't have the time and energy to do them all. I do want to write a short OBS studio book, and I've got the software, I've got the outline, I've got everything ready to go. But it's just finding the time to actually do the writing. So if anyone's got any tips on that, please let me know in the chat. That would be really wonderful. But I hope this has been useful. I think it is worthwhile trying different things, and it's a great way to think in opposites and think about the contrast. So long versus short, horizontal versus vertical, video versus audio, audio or video versus text, like all these options. And again, you can't do everything. You've got to choose your battles. But what are the ones that would be interesting to you? What are the ones that you want to explore? So if you have any thoughts on that, please let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear those. But I guess as I reflect, go back to that old content. If it's still relevant, share it. And try to get over the fact that it may not look as good as you want it to look, because back then you were still learning. If the information is still relevant, share it again, because people need to know stuff. And I kind of forget sometimes what weirdly niche esoteric information is stuck in my head that people have no way of knowing unless I actually share it with them. So that's something I would definitely recommend that you think about and that you try. All right. Well, I mean, it's been really good to be back. I really missed not being live last week. Great to have your company today. I should be back next week with OBS Obsessed, my show about OBS Studio. So if that's something of interest to you, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll be notified of such things. But otherwise, have a great week. Have a great weekend when you get there. And I will talk to you again very, very soon.